What's going on, guys? Andrew of New Bar Gaming back here today with some Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains cast list and summary preview analysis. So starting with episode 68, the title's going to be A Secret Meeting, and we have I suddenly disappeared from the duel disc. Having determined that another Ignis could be behind this, Playmaker heads into Link Vrains to search for I. There he encounters the Light Ignis. Playmaker then learns about the Lightning Ignis' motives and the truth behind the Cyberse world's destruction. That to me strikes it as there's something a little more deep going here than just an outside force necessarily attacking. Now granted, Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't necessarily always known for having these super dramatic twists, but given how the Light Ignis hasn't been introduced to us yet and has been introduced to us by I as being very intelligent and which can sometimes translate to manipulative, I think it's very possible that maybe the Light Ignis was trying to spark some kind of a conflict between people and the AIs, believing that the AI would come out on top and be better off because of it. Now, playing to the other side of that, it is also very possible that the Light Ignis is just going to be very calculated in what they're describing, explaining to Yusaku that, hey, we've had people be extremely aggressive towards us before, so we're now trying to be preemptive and defensive now, rather than interacting with you all, just to make sure we protect ourselves. So I have a feeling this is going to be very much Yusaku trying to reach out to the Ignis, trying to set up some kind of, an agreement, an accord of sorts, explain that not all people are evil or necessarily trying to attack them the way Revolver and the Knights of Hanoi are, whereas the Light Ignis is showing a lot of caution. Maybe then Playmaker manages to almost get through to the Light Ignis. Then there's a key character down in this cast list by the name of a Revolver that comes into this episode that I have a feeling may shatter it. This is a fairly common scene we see in a lot of movies and TV shows where you have two sides almost come to an agreement, then the one side that's judging the other group, in this case the Ignis judging people, suddenly sees another example playing into their belief towards the group as a whole. So they see Revolver, who's being, very aggressive towards them, as representing people as a whole again, because he comes into the play and is then trying to attack the Light Ignis. We'll have to wait and see how that unfolds, but just a personal belief of mine. So for the cast list, we've got Yusaku Fujiki, we've got AI, we've got Takeru / Soulburner, Flame, Kusanagi, Revolver, Light Ignis, Windy, Roboppy, Link Karibo, and Echo. Now the fact that Windy's also on here identifies to me that Windy's probably either going to be in the meeting as well, or maybe Yusaku speaks with Windy thinking, hey, I's gone. Do you know anything about this? So maybe it's just a brief appearance, or maybe they're on the same side as the Light Ignis, and then we sort of have Flame and I on the side of working with humans, and the Light Ignis and Windy on the side of sticking to themselves, potentially being against humans, and then that would leave you with Aqua and Earth in the middle, which would be kind of a neat setup, and we're kind of waiting to see how things unfold with that. Okay, so moving right along here, we're going to go on to some summaries, titles, etc. for episode 69 and beyond. Then moving right along to episode 69, we have, in order to eliminate the Ignises, Revolver launches an attack against Windy and the others. Playmaker tries to talk some sense into Revolver, but to no avail. Revolver then begins his duel against Windy. So stopping to analyze this a little bit, that probably explains where Windy's appearance in the cast list shows up. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be all in the same room. I think we can probably assume they are, given how Playmaker's there to try and stop the duel between Windy and Revolver, and we know in the previous episode that Playmaker's going to be trying to reach some kind of an accord with the Light Ignis. It's probably, Playmaker's talking to the Light Ignis, Windy's also there, and then Revolver shows up. He starts to duel Windy, because Windy says, I'll take this battle, not you, Light Ignis, and then they're dueling one another while Playmaker's trying to talk some sense into him. Just make a lot of sense for that character lineup to all end up in the same room. It sounds to me like Revolver's still holding on very, very passionately to his father's decision, which is that the Ignises are more dangerous than they are helpful. So with that being the case, I think we're going to be seeing the Knights of Hanoi prove to be once more a main antagonist in this section of our story arc. I'm still not convinced that they're going to be the main antagonists in the long run, though. I'm thinking this is setting up very, very similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, in that you kind of have the humans, and you have the Baryons, and then you have Don Thousand, who's really the main antagonist at the head of everything, and the Baryons and humans are just more so clashing as a result of what was set up by them. We also don't really know where Bowman falls into all of this, and one important detail I do want to point out about Bowman is in the appearances we've had of him so far, he's had flashes of light appear around him. For example, when he was First dueling Playmaker. Playmaker couldn't make him out. He was basically this glowing substance, which seems to almost tie him in some ways to the Light Ignis in my eyes. I mean, we've already seen them tie one antagonist to the Light Ignis, and Spectre being tied, or not Light Ignis, to an Ignis, being Spectre tied to the Earth Ignis, so we don't know if there's necessarily a connection there, but we can't rule out just because, hey, you're an antagonist, therefore you don't have an Ignis. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. So moving right along from that, then we're going to hit episode 70, which we only have a title for, and that's going to be Tuning Bullets. Now, out of all the summaries and cast lists we've had so far, this is the one that has me the most excited. Why? Because in the past few episodes, we've already seen fusion summoning introduced. Now, granted, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but the fact that that and ritual summoning have both been relatively prominent speaks to me that, you know, they're trying to introduce these other summoning methods, or at least it's very much a possibility. Throw in this episode titled Tuning Bullets, when tuners are the monsters used in tandem with synchro summoning, it shows to me that maybe we are going to be getting these other summoning methods, and maybe, just maybe, the summoning methods are going to have something to do with the sides of this conflict we're watching unfold. Again, kind of a throwback to Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 a little bit, in that you have, you know, Soul Burner and Playmaker both using fusion summoning, who are working alongside the AI, and Aoi, who's also using fusion summoning, which plays a little bit into my theory that she may be tied to the Aqua Ignis, and she'll end up working with Soul Burner and Playmaker as this thing continues to unravel. And then you've got Revolver working along the side the Knights of Hanoi, and if this Tuning Bullets thing, keep in mind, his deck is the Verits or bullets, depending on how you want to interpret the translation or go with the sub, etc., etc. So if you're tuning those, you might be synchro summoning with them. Then you've got synchro versus fusion again. Once more, it plays a little bit into an Arc 5 reference in that the synchro dimension was eventually attacked by fusion dimension people. So that would be kind of cool to watch unfold. A little bit of a callback to those that have watched all the series, while once more adding in those extra summoning methods, which, in my opinion, always makes the duels more interesting to watch because it makes them a lot less predictable. You know, you see someone like Yusaku who has like 4 monsters on his field. Season 1, you pretty much were like, okay, I know he's going to link summon. Yeah, maybe he's going to do it like 6 times this time, but still, we know he's link summoning. Versus now, if he's got like 4 or 5 monsters on his field, we've got like, okay, maybe he's going to use 2 of them to ritual summon. Maybe he's going to use a fusion and then go into a link summon, etc., etc. Basically, the primary point is, I think this spices things up a lot. Then episode 71, we're going to have the title Declaration of War. We can assume this is when our conflict's really starting to unfold and introduce itself in full tandem, and we can just basically understand this is probably where Knights of Hanoi and the Ignises end up on total opposite sides of things. It's going to be interesting to see where Yusaku and Soul Burner end up falling on this. It's just because Yusaku seems to have somewhat of a soft spot for Revolver, especially considering we did have that one flashback scene a few episodes ago where it shows that he bumped into Revolver on the streets. And they shared, you know, a similar passion for dueling, and Revolver was the one that gave him hope when he was going through the lost incident. So I don't think Yusaku believes Revolver to be an entirely lost cause, and as a result, him fully antagonizing him isn't something I see being super likely. I mean, think to Yugi and Kaiba. Kaiba and Yugi were often on totally opposite sides of the playing field with things when it came to their perspectives on dueling and friendship and such, but Yugi never fully antagonized him. An even better example of that, just because they found themselves on opposite sides of the conflict as a whole, would probably be Yuma and Shark from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. Yuma never gave up hope on Shark, despite the fact that Shark ended up being the last, like, enemy-driven duel that he faced in all of Zexal, when, you know, he faced Shark in his Baryon form, and they had that, I think it was like a 5-parter duel that was really epic. But regardless, Yuma kept holding on to hope for Shark, and Shark didn't ever quite give up on Yuma either. So I think Playmaker and Soul Burner are probably going to find themselves somewhere in the middle of this conflict, because they're going to want to help the AI. They don't want to see them eliminated. They see the kind of benefits and that they can bring, and they see that people and AIs can get along, in the fact that, you know, they each have one that they're going along with really well right now. So with that being the case, I think we're going to see our main protagonist stuck in the middle, but eventually forced to choose a side by someone or another. Either that or they're going to be dueling from both sides, and that's just going to be really interesting. I like the idea of kind of a 3-sided conflict diagram rather than a 2-sided one. I think it always makes things a lot more spicy because you can't really tell where they're heading with things. Adding to that, we do have a series of other cast members that we don't really know where they're going to fall. Given how Go and Aoi are essentially both working with Soul Tech right now, it's kind of going to be odd to see where they end up falling, because we don't know where Akira falls with all of this, and at the end of the day, Akira's the one they more or less work for. So, and he definitely has a soft spot for Yusaku, but at the same time needs information about the Ignises for his boss, so that'll be funny to watch unfold. Moving on to our episode 72 title, then we have Absolute Perfection. Now, this to me strikes me as probably an episode we're going to see whoever's in charge of the AI party having a lot of interaction, because Konami, I believe in his creation of the Ignises, was mentioning how they were supposed to be kind of the next level for humans, help them reach the next level. They were the idea of, you know, perfectionizing humans, because then you don't have to deal with mortality and all those things anymore. So I'm wondering if this is going to be an episode of, you know, maybe the AIs have a big win in a duel or something along those lines to show that they are quote-unquote the perfect form, and then we're going to, after that, a few episodes later, maybe watch the humans get up a big victory, etc., etc. Overall, this is evolving to be a very interesting plot. I'm going to be very curious to see where Bowman falls in all of this. Part of me is wondering if he's maybe a pawn of the Ignises who are trying to spark this conflict to begin with, and they're trying to do it through a human. That way they can convince Flame and I to come along with them, and then the on-the-fence Ignises as well, being Earth and Aqua, just so that they have everybody working together again. Part of me also believes, you know, maybe Bowman's just got a scarred past and he's just another faction that we're throwing into things. And then on top of that, we have our other bounty hunters. We've got Emma, who you never really know which side she's on fully, though she does seem to generally go with Akira. So we've got a lot to watch unfold, guys, and Season 2's got me a lot more excited than Season 1 so far, so it'd be great to watch where it goes. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. If not, constructive criticism is always welcome, and I'll catch you guys next time on more Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains content.